Hi, I'm Chong from the School of Dentistry. Today I want to share my perspective on the needs and gaps in our school, and I hope I can illustrate the golden thread that could link teaching to true learning. I speak from two vantage points. As a student from the first dental cohort back in 2008, and then being part of the faculty in 2015 till today. This gives me the experience of seeing our curriculum from both sides of the fence, experiencing it as a learner, and later witnessing its impact as an educator. Let me begin with a familiar story. There was a kid. He proudly told his dad, "Hey dad, I taught Fido how to whistle." So his dad told him to demonstrate it. So he told Fido, "Come on, Fido, whistle." However, Fido wags his tail vigorously but does not whistle. Hmm, his dad replied. "I thought you said you taught Fido how to whistle. I didn't hear him whistle." "Well, Dad, I said I taught him how to whistle. I didn't say he learned it." This reflects a key challenge. We often focus on what we teach, but far less on what students actually learn. And that is why an outcome based education is so important. It emphasizes what we expect students will have achieved when they complete their course. These learning achievements go beyond just knowing. Rather, they describe what learners can actually do with what they know. And this is what we are doing in this assignment. We first define the successful graduate, which is the needs, and then we will plan our curriculum backwards through designing measures of performance and creating learning opportunities aligned to the outcomes. It shifts us towards competencies that students can demonstrate. The Malaysian Dental Council outlines 9 core competencies across the cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domains. These include possessing knowledge, ability to communicate effectively, and to perform clinical skills independently. These represent our needs of the 21st century health professional, which is safe, competent, and caring dental practitioners. Ultimately, we want our graduates to elevate our wellness and inspire confidence in their patients, also in their teams and in themselves. Now, let's talk about the generation we are teaching today. Most of our undergraduates belong to Generation Z. They grew up in a world fundamentally different from ours, which is instant information, high digital exposure, and a culture of constant comparison. I noticed that my students find it difficulty in managing failure. They somehow take it as a disaster to be avoided at all costs, which resembles the fixed mindset. I would love for them to take failure as an opportunity to strive to be better. Sometimes I wonder if our selection process is the one that contributes to this. However, I applaud our university's efforts by using the multiple mini interview. This can help us give a fuller picture of the applicants. Yet, I still find students struggle in our course. Maybe it's because it's a range of cultural, societal, environmental, and also educational factors that have shaped this generation differently from previous ones. And these differences influence their psychosocial development and their ability to thrive in a curriculum designed for earlier cohorts. I believe the current generation mindset has been shaped by instant gratification. It conditions the brain to expect quick success. Also, they have performance pressure and comparison culture due to the wide use of social media. And thirdly, we often praise them for talent instead of effort, linking identity to ability. This combination often leads students to be less resilient, which is one of the essential skills for clinical learning. When I was an undergraduate student, Professor once said to me, "Numbers don't matter, quality over quantity." I didn't really truly appreciate these words until now. What she meant was, quality does not grow without deliberate, effortful practice. I used to believe that simply practicing a lot, which equals to quantity, would eventually make me an expert. But research shows that while practice leads to improvement, progress eventually plateaus. This is what we call arrested development. That is why someone may claim 20 years of experience when it's essentially 1 year repeated 20 times. What separates world-class performers like the Lewis Hamilton or Datuk Lee Chong Wei is deliberate practice, which is purposeful, effort, constant feedback, and continuous refinement of weaknesses. Do our students know how to do the same? They need the right mindset and psychosocial readiness to engage in this process. Here lies the central issue. Many students enter with underdeveloped psychosocial skills, including adaptability, insight, resilience, and self-efficacy. These gaps affect learning approaches, stress management, and ultimately patient safety. So what do we do? To close this gap, I would like to suggest the need to integrate a psychosocial development intentionally into the curriculum, not just part of the hidden curriculum. By doing so, we'll help students build essential psychosocial skills such as insight, adaptability, well-being, personal growth, and accountability, which are essential for learning, professional development, and personal well-being. Effective learning requires a synergy between cognitive and psychosocial elements, which can view through a learning cycle. It begins with teaching that is constructively aligned to outcomes and appropriate assessment tools. The assessment design should have appropriate utility. What do I mean by that? It means that it should be valid, reliable, and challenging enough to promote both assessment of learning and assessment for learning. Good assessments guide feedback, reflection, and goal setting. With focused effort and deliberate practice, students develop long-term schemas and eventually achieve automation, which is a clear evidence that self-regulation has truly been abandoned. Psychosocial development can be mapped into three phases. The first phase is planning, of which goal setting should be structured to create conditions that motivate students towards action. And action shows persistence and sustained effort. Finally, education should provide balanced feedback that encourages students to identify what is working and what is not for the next phase of their learning when setting future goals. So, the success of a psychosocial curriculum is measured when students are able to navigate through these phases and develop self-regulated learning, which is essential for lifelong learning. So, how do we integrate psychosocial skills in the curriculum? I believe we can do it through low-stakes longitudinal activities, such as work-based assessment with guided reflection. Another way would be tracking responsiveness to feedback and also monitoring timeliness and structured mentoring programs for setting and meeting goals. Each activity becomes a data point offering contextual insight into a student's psychosocial growth. Psychosocial skills, like clinical skills, require development, and the development relies on interaction between the student, the environment, and the behavior in the learning setting. There are certainly challenges in integrating the psychosocial aspects into the curriculum. Number one being the complexity of big data, as discussed by Eloy and colleagues. Honestly, in the School of Dentistry, we have also tried to integrate psychosocial component in our curriculum. However, I feel that implementation needs more effort. We have used praise and rate cards to promote professionalism, but I believe that the students must face real-world consequences. For example, if they miss required classes, we should not intervene to let them sit for exams. Finally, any change requires the support of all stakeholders. both the faculty and the students. So this is usually everyone's favorite slide, the summary of my gap analysis. The objective is to produce safe, competent, caring dental professionals. However, the current generation lack resilience with fixed mindset tendencies. The gap causes underdeveloped psychosocial skills, leading to ineffective learning approaches. Therefore, our desired state is to integrate psychosocial development in the curriculum. And the remedial action is to include longitudinal, low-stakes activities to promote self-reflection, goal setting, and deliberate practice. If we thread these pieces together, we will be able to form a beautiful tapestry. Before I end this presentation, I would like to remind everyone what Prof. Jerry has said, which is growth mindset matters. To truly prepare our students, we must teach not only the hands, but also the mind and the heart, the psychosocial foundations that allow them to learn, grow, fail safely, and ultimately care for their patients with confidence. Thank you. And this is my references. I would like to take this time to appreciate Prof. Dawson for walking me through his thoughts about incorporating a psychosocial subcurriculum into the dental education, both personally face-to-face and through communication through emails. I really enjoyed his visit to IMU, and I hope to learn from him more when I go to Liverpool.